Today I'm going to show you 4 East York neighborhoods with median prices under 1.3 million where families are actually buying homes with good schools. And I'm going to break down exactly what you're trading off in each one. Because if you're feeling kind of overwhelmed trying to figure out the right area, honestly, you're not alone. I've sat across from so many couples going through school ratings and transit times and walkability scores, and they're somehow more confused at the end of it than when they started. I've put together a free East York family neighborhood breakdown guide that cuts through a lot of that noise. Link is in the description. So after teaching high school and then helping families buy homes in Toronto for over 10 years, I've kind of seen the same pattern play out more times than I can count. What I'm going to do today is to break this down into 4 neighborhoods, all under 1.3 million, that each make sense for a different set of family priorities, because the goal here isn't to find the perfect neighborhood, it's to find the one that actually works with your life. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so let's start with Danforth Village-East York. And I'll say this up front, this is the neighborhood that looks quite good on paper. So here is Danforth Village-East York on Realm, like the system that I use for searching for homes. You can see that the western boundary is Pape, northern is Cosburn, eastern is Woodbine, and then Milverton is the one that runs east-west on the bottom of that boundary. And then the schools, R.H. McGregor is the elementary school that takes up the vast majority of that area. And then the other kind of big chunk is this one over here, which is Chester. You can see it takes up that like western quarter, I guess, of the neighborhood. Now there's other schools that occupy like little slivers of the area. So for example, William Burgess has that kind of top little notch there. Then you've got Diefenbaker, which is just the top little section. You've got Parkside up here, which takes the like northeast corner basically. And that would be everything. So those are the schools that serve that area in total. The numbers for Danforth Village-East York make a fairly compelling case. Median price sits at $1,175,000, so you're right in that budget. Chester Elementary has relatively strong EQA scores compared to other options in the area, although R.H. McGregor is well above the provincial standard for math, right around the standard for reading. Reading, unfortunately, is below. Safety-wise, 0 homicides over the last 5 years, 0 shootings from 2022 to 2024. Now, 2025 did see some elevation in that number, but still, by Toronto standards, this area is extremely safe. And here's the part that I think a lot of buyers aren't factoring in yet. The Ontario line is coming. Pape Interchange, Cosburn Station, around 2031. Although if the Eglinton LRT taught us anything, those timelines are more suggestions than anything, but the work has started, so that's official confirmed transit expansion. It's just not priced in the way that it probably should be. What does all of this actually mean? You're buying into one of Toronto's safest neighborhoods, fairly solid school options, and future subway access built in. And if you're living in that southern portion of that community, then you're already within walking distance to the Danforth subway. We're talking about going from bus dependent for a lot of that area to subway connected within the next decade or less. If you're the type of person who does their homework and wants the data to back up the decision, Danforth Village-East York kind of delivers on most of those metrics. Now, for the most part, this is the neighborhood for families who don't love surprises. I really like this area, but here's what all those numbers don't tell you. You've only got 3 parks in the neighborhood. We'll get to an area in about a minute that has 16. Let's briefly talk renovation headroom. If the median price is $1,175,000, you've got a $125,000 gap before you hit that $1.3 million budget ceiling. So you want to be mindful of what you're buying and how turnkey it is, because a typical property in this area isn't far off from your max budget. And that's kind of where things get interesting, because this next neighborhood gives you almost the exact opposite trade-off. Birchcliffe-Cliffside. This is where families go when they actually want room to breathe. So here's Birchcliffe-Cliffside. On the west end, you've got Vic Park. On the right side is Midland, obviously the lake across the bottom, and then it follows kind of Kingston Road across the top, obviously up on an angle. Now, let me zoom in a little bit here, show you the schools. So we've got Blantyre in the top left corner. We've got Courcelette down here. There's a lot of schools that service this area. Birchcliffe services kind of the middle of it. Then over here, you've got Birchcliffe Heights. And over here is Cliffside. And then I believe that there's a bit of John A. Leslie that kind of covers that top, like north east portion of it, I guess. Median price drops to $1,068,500. So we're looking at over $100,000 less than Danforth Village-East York. And here's where it gets fairly fascinating. 16 parks in this neighborhood. 16. That's more than 5 times what you're getting in Danforth Village-East York. Family households make up 41% of residents in this community. That's a fairly solid family density for an East York neighborhood at this price point. But here's the school story that I think most buyers never actually come across. So if you look at the west side of Birchcliffe, down here's Courcelette. That has a school rating of 9.7. This one here, Blantyre, is a 6.9. And then when you get in the middle, Birchcliffe and Birchcliffe Heights have I think low 6s, high 5s. And then when you get to Cliffside and John A. Leslie, you have ratings of 3.9 and 2.2. Same community, completely different educational outcomes, results, depending on which side of this invisible line you land on. So this community has this gradient, I guess, if you will, where the schools are quite strong on the west side of the area, and then the scores kind of drop off as you move into the middle and then move east. So what this means is your street address matters more than your neighborhood name. You could buy 2 houses at not drastically different prices, same general area, and your kids could end up in a 9.7 school or a 2.2 school. And that's the kind of thing that doesn't show up in a neighborhood comparison. And this is exactly what I mean when I say research kind of doesn't protect you the way that you think it does. You can spend weeks comparing neighborhoods and completely miss the micro geography that actually determines a portion of what your kid's school experience is going to look like. The park density in Birchcliffe-Cliffside is genuinely great for families. Kids can walk to green space, you find other families around, that vibe is good. But the school variance, you need to know exactly what catchment you're buying into before you put in an offer. That is not optional. Now, this is exactly the kind of breakdown I've organized in that free East York Family Guide. All those numbers mapped out by specific streets, so you can see exactly what side of the catchment lines you're landing on. The link is in the description if you haven't grabbed it already. Now, if you're thinking, I just don't want to deal with invisible school boundaries, the next neighborhood kind of takes that off the table. East End Danforth. This is pretty established Toronto. Everything's kind of already figured out here. So here it is on a map. On the west side, you've got Woodbine. On the east side is Vic Park. It skirts along kind of just a little bit above Danforth on the northern border, and then uses Kingston Road for the most part as the southern border. Now, schools. So we've got in the bottom left corner, we've got Norway Junior. We've got Kimberley. Takes up a good chunk of the middle. You've got Adam Beck. You've got Gled Hill. Then this little top corner, Seacourt Elementary. Now in this community, the median price comes in at $1,207,750. That's the highest in our group. It's still under 1.3 million. Part of the reason is that because there's a fair number of detached homes that are in this neighborhood. So it just raises that number up a little bit. The family household kind of structure or share sits at 40% for the area, and the infrastructure is mature. So you're not guessing at what this neighborhood is going to become. You're looking at what it already is. And the trade-off, the renovation headroom sits at just $92,250. That's the lowest ceiling of all 4 neighborhoods. Translation, you're paying for convenience and certainty, but you're also buying at or fairly close to the neighborhood's peak value with respect to your budget. Major renovations aren't going to return the investment the way that they would in some of the other areas that we've been looking at. Now, if predictability matters more to you than potential, this makes a lot of sense. I get it. You know exactly what you're getting. And honestly, knowing which trade-off you can't live with, that's kind of its own form of research. But a lot of families don't figure that out until after they buy. The thing about this neighborhood is it won't surprise you. For better or worse, it's fairly stable, it's established, and it's priced accordingly. And some families need that certainty more than they need the upside. There's nothing wrong with that. But what if you're the type who would rather have $185,000 more house and actually room to make it your own? Woodbine Lumsden. This is the value play, and it comes with a little bit of homework. So it's bordered at the top by the river, then we go to Maine. There's no set street across the bottom that does the southern border, but it's just a little bit above Danforth, and then Woodbine creates that big western border. Only 3 schools service this area. So the top part is serviced by Parkside Elementary, bottom left is Gled Hill, and bottom right is Secord Elementary. Median price in this community is $1,022,500. So you're looking at $185,000 less than the East End Danforth for fairly similar housing stock. Renovation headroom, $277,500. That's almost 3 times what you're working with in that other established neighborhood. Real money to actually work with. Now, family household share sits at 38%. Here's the challenge. All the elementary schools in Woodbine Lumsden are currently sitting below provincial EQAO averages. What you're getting is the most house for your money and the most room to add value through renovations. What you're trading off is school ratings to get there. And this is where my teaching background comes into play, and I'll say that openly. As a former educator, those Fraser Institute rankings are based on EQAO scores. That's one standardized test. It tells you something, but it doesn't tell you whether your kid is going to love going to school every morning. If you're comfortable doing some actual due diligence on individual schools, not just checking the district average or checking the Fraser Institute rankings, this neighborhood gives you the most financial flexibility of anything we've looked at today. But I'm not just saying look at the ratings and there's your research. That's not enough here. And that's what brings us back to where we started. The families who are happy with their neighborhood choice 2-3 years in, they're not the ones who found the perfect area. They're the ones who picked the neighborhood that kind of forgives their biggest blind spot. Maybe you underestimate how much parks matter until you're stuck inside with a toddler. Maybe you think you don't care about schools until your kid starts asking why their friends go somewhere different. The right neighborhood isn't the one that scores highest in every metric. It's the one that's strongest where you're most likely to guess wrong. I've put together that complete East York family neighborhood breakdown guide with all of these numbers and the specific streets to focus on. The link is in the description. Many couples spend months researching neighborhoods and might not think about individual schools, but here's what I've learned after years of helping families navigate this. The school your kid actually attends matters way more than the neighborhood average. That's exactly what I break down in Toronto's top 5 elementary schools you need to know.